All right. Well, one of the biggest trending trades out there right now is Bitcoin. It is surging. We're also seeing a surge in a bunch of other cryptocurrencies like Ethereum. A number of reasons as to why, you had MicroStrategy, which has stated as part of its strategy is to continue to buy and hold Bitcoin. They bought 3,000 more Bitcoin on Monday. So that brings their Bitcoin holdings to around $10 billion. And of course, we're still understanding the consequences of the ETFs that launched in the U.S. Some $6 billion in fresh capital have gone towards buying Bitcoin through these ETFs. For a look at where we are right now and some of these trends, I'd like to bring in Mauricio Di Bartolomeo. He's the co-founder at crypto lending company Ledn. Mauricio, it's great to be joined with you again. I do always struggle to understand why is crypto rallying. You're in the space. Do you have a great answer for me?
I think the reason it's great to see you again, Amber. I hope you're doing great. I think the reason Bitcoin is rallying today is because you're seeing institutions wake up to actually understand what Bitcoin is and how it works. You're seeing a lot of really big names like BlackRock and others effectively put these ETFs into the market, and they have unlocked an avalanche of institutional demand. As you mentioned, $6 billion have flowed into the funds, with $500 million coming in and net inflows positive inflows yesterday. So what I think you're seeing is, in a world where fiscal deficits are being run rampant, there is very little, there's a lot of uncertainty around monetary policy, and Bitcoin provides an island of certainty with a fixed supply of 21 million. And I think that's what you're seeing people run to, basically.
You know, you're a great person to ask this question. I know it's kind of percolating in Bitcoin world, but whether or not this institutional interest and wanting institutions to embrace Bitcoin is, opposed to the founding principles of what Bitcoin was supposed to be about: decentralization, not embraced by kind of mainstream structure. And I'm asking that because of your history as, a Venezuelan who has experienced what can happen with the currency. And I know that's what you've talked about, what attracts you to cryptocurrency. So how do you reconcile these two things?
It's a great question, Amber. And I think with Bitcoin, you have to acknowledge, the way I interpret this is Bitcoin is different things for different people. In places like Venezuela, where inflation is a lot more obvious, well, people, they have a massive need for money that is not basically melting in your hands. And so Bitcoin serves this role. And that is why we in Venezuela ran to it and found it during our hyperinflation run. What you're seeing now is that inflation problem is expanding beyond Venezuela, and you're having double-digit inflation in the developed economies, and these people are seeing their dollars get debased just as our bolívares were. And in a smaller scale, with the percentages, we had millions of percentages in year-over-year inflation. Here, it's in the double digits, but it still impacts your day-to-day. So I think, as long as Bitcoin is not losing its attributes and its main principles by being wrapped into this ETF format, if you are an investor that benefits from purchasing Bitcoin in an ETF format, then all the power to you. But Bitcoin, you can still purchase and self-custody and do all the beautiful things that Bitcoin allows you to do, not necessarily through an ETF. So Bitcoin is just different things for different people, and it's being now offered in the formats that different types of investors need, and importantly, registered investment advisors in the US and institutions.
In past bull markets, there's bad behavior that people look over, you don't notice because prices are going up. And then as prices come down, you find out who are true actors and who are not. And so in every single case where the bull market unwinds, there are implosions. And really big ones. So I'm asking you now, in the context of today's bull market, are you still seeing, that bad behavior? You're a crypto lender. That could make people very nervous when you're talking about things like leverage and lending against cryptocurrency. Is the industry getting smarter, more aligned with the values that regulators want to see every time we see these upswings? I mean, how are you putting that to practice in your business?
That's a great question, Amber. And I think that the answer my answer would be yes. We are seeing more and more of this lending activity move to centralized and regulated entities like Ledn. So in our case, we've seen our originations more than double from Q1 last year. We still have a month to go in Q1. And so a lot of that flow is coming to Ledn, which is a company that effectively showed the market and the world that we withstood the volatility of 2022 with no issues. And a lot of that demand is concentrating now into products like the ones that we offer and away from unregulated platforms. Something that I also think will happen with the Ethereum ETF when eventually it launches is that you're going to see a lot more of the Ethereum activity move from decentralized and unregulated platforms to centralized and regulated platforms, again, like Ledn, and that is a part of this process of maturing. I do think crypto will continue to offer optionality for those who want to operate in a decentralized versus a centralized way, but more and more of that activity will move to the centralized, fully regulated world.
And more than that, you've also become part of the cleanup strategy of some of the other implosions that we've seen. What have you been doing with Celsius?
Thank you. Yeah, that's been, I think, a sad story that hopefully will have a happy ending. So when Celsius went bankrupt, a lot of the borrowers that had loans trapped in Celsius were also Ledn clients. And as part of the bankruptcy, what happened was that if there was no group willing to refinance some of those loans, the borrowers, some of them could look to get hit with another issue, which was a potential taxable event. So there was a need for a potential third-party lender to come in and provide a solution that would enable borrowers to refinance their loans from Celsius into a different group. And the borrowers actually came to us and asked us to submit a proposal, and we did. And right now, based on the preliminary data that we're managing, it looks like we're about to get 60% of the total loans that are looking to be refinanced. And actually, the share is 80% in the markets where we operate, because some of that pie is in jurisdictions that Celsius operated in that we can't service.